Oh, hot, 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 hot. Look at that. Look at the steam. Do you see the steam coming off of that? That is beautiful. Put this over here. Good afternoon, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about how you should be setting your guitar amp for the best results. Now, there's obviously no right or wrong way to this. That's kind of the beauty of it. However, these are just some tips that I like to use in order to go for the sounds that I particularly enjoy and that I find work well in a lot of different scenarios. So most, if not all, guitar amps you'll come across do typically have a sweet spot. This spot on most amps is typically where the amp is just starting to break up just a little bit. And it really works well if you want to use something like an overdrive or boost pedal, as well as when you want to add things like time-based effects, reverbs, delays. You don't get that sort of mushiness to the sound when you're putting those effects in front of a really overdriven amp. They still respond super well. The other thing that's really nice about having the amp set this way is it's going to respond to how hard you pick the strings, and it's going to help you show some more dynamic and get your kind of own character off in your playing, if that makes sense. Alright, without further ado, let's hop into it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use my little Morris combo. It has a 3-band EQ, treble middle bass, a master volume, a presence, and a gain control. So we're going to go through all of them, starting with the gain control here. EQ, all set to 12 o'clock. I'm going to have the gain and the master pretty low. So this is where we're going to start. So you can hear it's a good sound. You know, it's a fine sound. There's nothing wrong with it, but there isn't anything inherently cool about it either. It's pretty bland. So I'm going to start bringing up that gain control, and we're going to try and get it in that sweet spot where the amp just starts to open up. What I like to do there, and you saw me doing it, is I'm moving that gain control back and forth just so I can hear the point of where it most changes. That's where the amp is going to start opening up and sounding its best. So you're going to find there's a couple points on the knob of where you find that point of most change. And that's going to be pretty much all across the board, even once we get to the EQ part. And basically, you kind of just have to have personal preference there. Find that spot and then maybe go back a little bit, go a bit more forward. You know, see what works for you. But I like it right set about there. So we're right at about 12 o'clock. So you can hear if I pick a little bit lighter, you know, it starts to clean up, maybe roll the volume back. So nice crisp, clean sound. If I roll the volume up, still pick light, it stays really nice and clean. Now if I hit hard, now we're going to move on to the EQ part, and I like to start with the bass control personally. You don't really want to have a ton of low end in your sound, just enough so that it feels good and sounds good, but you don't want too much so that you're too muddy. So if we start with the bass there at 12 o'clock, you're going to hear it's a lot. It's pretty woofy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the bass down just a little bit. And you can hear how much clearer that sound just got. That's going to sound much better when we start to add in some pedals later on as well. I still think it's a little bit too much, so I'm going to bring it back just a little bit. And that's where I'm going to leave it, just where it's just starting to kick in. Now we're going to move on to the treble control, and same thing. I'm thinking that's a little bit spiky for my liking right now. And you can see once you get the hang of it, you can dial an amp in super quick. This is going to be super helpful if you're on a stage where there's backline, it's a throw and go situation, and you're greeted with an amp that maybe you've never even used before. This is going to be way quicker. You're going to be able to get your sound, get everything dialed in for your pedals way faster. So now that we have the amp dialed into its sweet spot, we're going to dive into the pedal board here. And I'm using a couple of different overdrive pedals. We're going to use mainly this guy here, the Greer Lightspeed. So we're going to take the same approach that we did with the amp and do it with the pedal. So that's first dialing in our gain, finding that point of most change, finding that sweet spot. Then we're going to do the same thing with the EQ. So I'm going to start with the drive on the pedal set really low, and then I'm just going to start boosting it up as we go to try and find that sweet spot. So here's just the amp by itself. And then we'll click on the pedal. So now I'm going to do the same thing with the loudness control. Now that is the volume control. I find with this pedal in particular, it's really cool to just kick the front end of an amp that's breaking up a little bit. So I'm going to use the loudness control combined with the drive control and just sort of balance them out. Again, trying to find that sweet spot. Alright, now we're going to do the same thing with the EQ. Now on this particular pedal, all we have is that middle frequency control. It is a tone control, but it's a really flexible tone control on this particular pedal. It adds a lot of high end when you turn it up. It gets really dark when you turn it down. It's a very, very active EQ control. So let's jump into that. So right there, honestly set pretty much the same as the drive and the loudness control, right at the same spot. We're going to throw in a little bit of slap back delay with that from the El Capistan. My favorite part about having the amp and pedal set up this way is when you go to add a boost for a lead sound, you get kind of the best of both worlds. You don't just get a volume boost. Because that amp is breaking up just a little bit, you get a little bit of added saturation, which I think sounds super cool. So to demonstrate that, I have the exotic RC booster right after the Greer Lightspeed, so the Lightspeed's feeding into that. I've already preset the pedal to that sweet spot of the pedal, like I said. I may actually just back down the bass just a hair, because it can get a little bit woofy. But that's going to be my solo boost sound. So I'll demonstrate it with it off, so just the Lightspeed. And then when I kick on the RC booster, add a little bit of delay. And you'll notice if I pick a little bit lighter and maybe roll the volume off, so it still gives me that solo boost. It still gives me that volume, but it also adds a bit of saturation. What's nice about having the amp set this way as well is when you're running time-based effects in front of a really overdriven amp, it starts to get a little bit messy, especially once you start adding boosts and overdrives in front of that. It just gets to be too much. But with the amp set this way, you're able to run the mix on the reverbs, delays a little bit higher to get that effect that you're looking for ambient sounds and that sort of thing. But when you start to add overdrive in front of that, it still doesn't get away from you. It doesn't get super mushy, which I really enjoy. So I just turned on the Flint. It's set into its 80s setting, volume full up on my guitar. It still gives you a really nice ambient sound, even with the amp breaking up a little bit. So you can hear the delay and the reverb don't get away from me. I even added the Mythos Mjolnir just to give it a little bit more saturation in front of the light speed, and the reverb and delay still really kept together. It didn't get too much. That's why I love setting the amp this way, and why I think this is the most versatile way to set your guitar amp. So if you found this video helpful, don't be afraid to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content. Cold coffee. Not great. If it's iced, great. Cold? I'm still gonna drink it though. I mean, obviously.